Well, very good, everybody. Very good
came
to
out well,
everybody. We have Rowley in the top right corner. We got Carl,
Good morning.
Tom, Ian, and unfortunately Mike's joined us as well. So very good day to everybody. I'm not quite sure if Mike is completely sober tonight, but we'll find out. So there's a couple of things I've been. One of the reasons inviting these people in is that there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about, and if you've got opinions, then put them in the chat, and then we can, give us something to talk about. But the first thing is, I mean, I've had some really. There's no such thing as a crazy comment, is there? But somebody want to know about toilets, somebody wanted to know about where we slept. Excuse me. I've just had a beer where we slept. And then I've got opinions about what radio do you take on these things and how do you power it if we are on battery. Now, I've got another video coming out in a few days' time. It's a little bit more serious. It's for the sort of emergency planning people. I just thought it gives you something to, not so much for amateur radio operators, but it guides you through how we've done it. And you saw that little pump-up mast we had, which is good fun, but is it things like that absolutely necessary? And what do you want to do? Do you really want to do VHF or do you want to do HF? Why are you going out the portable anyway? So, and I'll tell you the reason I think we went out portable. One is an excuse just to go out and have a laugh. And frankly, there was 6 of us, wasn't there? You saw most of them, and I think all of them in the video, actually. It was just very pleasant, okay? And the other thing is that the slope is basically all around us, so you get better takeoff on HF. Fantastic on VHF as well. What I wanted to know, though, from the team here and you guys, is it absolutely necessary that we go out and spend a fortune on these LiFo 4P4, whatever it's called, lithium-ion, expensive 50 amp hour batteries when we're not backpacking? We just drove up in the car, didn't we? We don't need to backpack batteries.
I think the lead acid batteries that I took, the 4 standard lead acid batteries, I think they cost all of about £20 a piece, worked perfectly. They lasted the entire course, and I'd put them on charge this morning and they were still 33% charged, so could have done a lot more. So
what you're saying, they'd used nearly 3/4?
Nearly 3/4 or 2/3.
They'd used. Okay, fine. All right. Well,
what I was going to say is I have noticed that there's 4 of the group here that still look the same age as when they went up to the hill, but the other guys, Ian, never mind. I've had too many already.
Now, Tom, you walked around the Isle of Arran.
Yeah.
You clearly, actually, I just remembered, you did once walk up a mountain with a bloody great car battery on your back. That was a long time ago. But you're not going to do that around Arran, are you? You had your solar power and some fancy little battery thing.
Yeah, so I took a 12 amp hour LiFo battery, which is not that expensive, but they're more expensive than the lead acid ones, obviously. But if you're walking, you've got to, weight is everything, isn't it? So that's a different kettle of fish. If you've got a car with you, I think if you're just starting out, then as you say, a spare car battery is ideal. I'm lucky enough to have some solar power as well, so that does help. These things do cost money, but just going out for an afternoon, or like Ian does for a shorter period of time, you could run that off your own car as long as you don't. I always park my car facing down the hill in case I run out of car battery. And I've done that many times when I was younger. Yeah, I did burn my back on a lead acid climbing up a Welsh mountain about 20 years ago because it leaked all over my rucksack, but that's another story.
Well, it's a good story, but you also proved as a fit young man you could actually walk a car battery all the way up a hill. That was the CB days, I seem to remember.
Yeah, it was, 2,000 feet, yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's a large aerial.
Now, you had your 705 with you, Tom, 10 watts. We went away with 100 watts at the weekend. If you are going to go portable, well, what is the opinion? If you've got a 100 watt radio and enough power, I mean, in my opinion, go 100 watts.
Yeah.
Well, it worked for us, didn't it? It worked for us. We managed to do the entire weekend just on battery, and It's plan and execute, I think.
Mm.
Well, I think once you
If you can take 100 watts with you, then you can do 30, 40, 50, 60. If you take a 10 watt, you've only got 10 watts and you're stuck then.
Right.
That's it. So
You know,
Now,
if you can
Rowley,
take
you've
something
done
like-
some tea expeditions, mate. You are there, aren't you? It's not, I'm just not looking at a picture. Yeah.
No,
Right.
he moves.
Yeah, that's right. Now, have you ever done a 10-watt expedition?
yes, I have many times.
Okay.
But in saying that, I've been fortunate enough to have a 200-foot tower to hang antennas off as well.
Yeah, okay.
So that makes up many dBs when you can get a 20-meter antenna, up 200 odd feet. Your 10 watts goes an awful long way. But in saying that, of late I've been doing a lot of POTA stuff or packs on the ear type stuff. Depend on the pack, I can drive up and if it's a drive up type thing, yeah, sure. I just got a something great big battery in the back of the car, which I use. And otherwise, if it's a walk in, well, I've got everything in here.
Okay.
And, in which case I use those LiFo batteries.
I see what you mean. If you're walking up a hill like Tom does.
Yeah, one of these things, 12 ampere hours. That'll run the Icon 730.
How much do they weigh then, Rowley? Because that looks like you're throwing it around as if it's nothing. Is it really light? These batteries?
Literally, it is nothing.
Well, it looks about. Oh,
Pick it
crikey.
up with 2 fingies.
Well, 2-3 cricket balls.
Mine's 700 grams,
That's
So less than
700
a
grams.
kilo.
Okay, fine.
something like that.
Wow.
don't
Because lead
feel like
acid weighs a serious amount of difference, isn't there? Lead
Yeah, it
lead
does.
acid batteries,
yeah.
what,
So that
5K?
So that, I've got a pack tenor antenna in here and all sorts of bits and bobs. That all sits in there, and then the Ellicraft KX3 sits,
Nice.
K3 X3 sits at the top.
Okay.
Now that's what I use if I'm going to go walking around in parks. Otherwise, it's the Icon 7300 sitting in the back of the car.
Mm.
And
How long do you get on that battery then, Rowley?
well, this battery here will run the 7300 for at least a couple of hours, full tilt on FT8. So
Okay.
I'm happy enough with that because that's all I want to be out in the park for is a couple of hours at a time. I'm fortunate here in Auckland. There are 30 parks that qualify for the Parks on the Air program, 4 of which are within 10 minutes of home here. So I can just grab this pack, hop in the car, and I'm in the park, and I can get up and running in 15, 20 minutes and put an hour in. I normally go out at just before dusk. So I'll shoot out there and put a pack on just before dusk. I get the maximum bang out of 40 and 20 meters at that time. And now I've done that every day since March.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Every day I'm out there, and every day I get a pack-to-pack contact with K7 CAR in the States, either on 20 or 40 meters. Another guy in Alaska, KL7TC. Another guy up in Hawaii, WH6EY. Almost on a daily basis, we're getting pack-to-pack contacts. They're either with the 7300 normally.
What would you advise coax wise for portable? I mean, they're generally not long runs of coax. It probably doesn't blooming matter, does it? Really?
It doesn't matter. Look, I've got 2 lots of coax. One is a high quality G8X, and if I'm going any further than I can carry that, I have about a 50-meter run of that, or this stuff here. What do you call it?
Archie 400. What is that?
No, it's 174, isn't it?
174, isn't it,
Yeah.
Mike? I think.
Yeah.
Teflon stuff.
What about
Yeah.
10 meters?
Yeah, it is about 10, 15 meters there. But I mean, there's 10 meters there rolled up in that little
Yeah,
bag.
yeah,
like
nice.
That's as light as anything, you know. And okay, I'm gonna hear the chat go, oh, the losses.
No, it's good stuff.
When you're just running over a little wee small length
No, of
like that,
course.
you're running
That's fine.
100 watts maximum. Yeah, sure, you're going to get losses, but it's not going to matter a damn, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, and now Mike brought with him here an end fed, and in fairness, there was a little valley like this. It was about 20 meters between peak to peak, and you put your end fed right across the top, which was aimed
That was
at
a great
80.
idea. I
but
love that. That was.
it worked a treat.
Yeah, it worked well,
Who
didn't
loved it, Carl?
I loved it. I thought it was a great idea. I've always wanted to do that. Is just to use the shape of the land to throw some wire across and just see if you can make contact.
Oh, no.
And that was a
And
great
it was.
setup of
I
that
thought it
valley.
might have been head height, but it must have been 20 feet, 5 meters or so high. You know, in the middle.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, at least the hang gliding guys could have come down and decapitated themselves. So,
Well, with the, I don't know about the guy stakes. I've got a funny feeling it would have just flown out. But
I think you're probably right. But yes, it was literally a foot above the ground at either end. And as you say, the valley
then a
just
big dip,
just went away, and it just had a natural clearance, which and it worked incredibly well for what it was. It worked really, really well. So I was pleased about that. Very light, very easy to throw out, and if you haven't got the natural lay of the land like that, you could always throw it up over the top of a tree.
If you've got no trees, if you've got no poles, then use the land around you. So you can make something
very
out of
good.
it.
Yeah.
Now, Tom, you're the only man I know who put a DX Commander expedition up every day for 10 days, was it?
Yeah, 10 days.
10 days.
Every day. Now, genuinely, don't lie, how fast was it taking you? How quickly?
Once you've got the hang of it, and you need to know your own antenna, your own orientation of the bungee cords that support the elements, etc.
Yeah.
So you do the same thing every time. You arrange the Jubilee clips or whatever it is and the plates in the same order every time, so they slide on in a wanna straight down. Once you've done all that and you've practiced, I could do that in 12 to 13 minutes, start to finish,
fine.
up and working.
Well, you're a bit slow, Tom.
Yeah. that's because in New Zealand
You have a beer in the middle.
You've got less gravity rolly down there.
Everything falls to the top in New Zealand.
To be fair, I'm only putting up 2 elements in most times, and it takes me. I timed myself one time, and it was 7 minutes. So there we go.
7 minutes.
With just 2 elements, there's 20 and 40.
That's because of where I was next to the beach in Scotland, where it was windy and wet. Then that was including taping every joint as well as using a couple of Jubilee clips. So
right,
yeah. But the one thing I was going to say about the end fed that Mike brought changed my attitude towards end feds nearly.
Yeah.
And
nearly.
There was a comment from someone actually when we were talking about it. Why do you need to go up high to do HF? Well, you don't. And what we really enjoyed was the VHF side of things, because next to the sea where I was in Scotland, that's where I enjoy doing HF. I think the ground improvement you get from that is enormous. So with a 10-watt radio like I had, it's the equivalent of using 100, 150 watts without a doubt.
Yeah.
And that's the fun for me, is enjoying the seaside as well.
I love the noise floor drops so far down compared to living in our sort of that noise floor. So you hear those really sort of distant contacts. And it's like the way that they drift in and drift out. It's quite magical, that sound. And that's what I love getting out away from all this noise around here. Is that noise floor dropping out the way, and it's great for that.
Now, Carl, you often stay overnight. Do you camp as well, or are you always in a little cabiny thing?
It depends on the season, really. During most of the year, I'll camp, but during the very harshest part of winter, I'll go into converted barns or shepherd huts and those sort of things. But mostly in a tent, mostly.
If you had to advise someone on the accommodation, their tent, right? Now, by the way, I'm assuming you're not doing a Tom. I mean, Tom's trip was insane. You know, he put everything in his backpack and he literally walked, what was it, 80, 90 miles, Tom, I think.
Yeah.
Around Aaron with everything on him, including DX Commander Expedition 705, his battery, solar power, food, and everything. But what would you say now that you've got experience, Carl, of doing an overnighter, maybe a little bit wild? You must have tried a few different tents.
I think it's so difficult to operate a radio inside a tent. It's almost impossible to do digital mode inside a small backpackable tent.
Yeah.
But really, if you are going to try and get away with it, you need at least a 3-man, 2-man tent.
Yes.
It's very difficult in a very sort of bivvy type tent to operate and look after your equipment. If the rain starts coming down, keeping rain off your equipment is much more difficult when you're in a very sort of small tent. So I've got 2-man and 3-man tents, but I've also got the big the big sort of tippy tent that I took on that weekend.
Yeah.
So it depends if you're going to carry it on your back or carry it in the boot of your car.
Well, indeed.
I think majority of people may just camp from the car, so they pull into a campsite.
Yeah.
So for that, you can get like a 3-man tent, and you can just get enough room in there to have your camp, your sleeping part, and then a bit of areas for running your radio and your battery and keeping everything dry. So you need a bit.
Do you take a little table as well to put the radio and stuff on, or what?
In the bigger tent to do, yeah. I as you get older, it tends to be harder to be in a cramped tent, bending over trying to operate a radio and do all your your bits and bobs. So you tend to sort of favour the tents that you can sit up in. So in that case, having a table and a little chair next to it, it's much more comfortable. You can spend more time then doing a bit of radio, doing all your food prep and all that. So
now, Ian, you are. I can't remember. You've got a caravan, haven't you?
Yeah.
With
posh camper.
Yeah, with the missus, right?
A posher camper.
Yes, all mod cons.
So I mean, that's you just hook up and go. I mean, obviously you've got the maintenance and everything of your caravan.
No, yeah. That's like the ultimate in terms of comfort, and because it's just being at home.
Yeah.
But I mean, picking up on Rowley's point earlier, and things that I'm sure we all recognise, it's got to be sort of straight. Like a lot of things in life, if it's a faff, if it's difficult to do, you're just going to be put off. So I think the key thing for any type of portable, and I think there's probably about, I don't know, is there half a dozen varieties of portable from the sort of the Tom end of sheltering behind a wall, getting blizzard blown, to caravanning at either end. But there's I mean, we know Tim goes out in the car, and I go portable in the car as well, but actually use the car. I think the comfort side and the ease of use is a key thing. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. And then, yes, the weather throws things at you. But I'm out portable. Well, I don't know, half a dozen times every month in a variety of guises. I can't beat Rollies every day, but and it doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to be complicated either.
No.
Mike, before you came with us and suffered as you did, right, with your various afflictions,
Many of them.
Have you ever
In
done?
fact, 5, if I remember.
Have you ever done? I'm not going to say what they were actually, but have you ever done? And the drone video you took of me, but have you ever done wild camping and radio before?
But wild camping and radio not at the same time. I hasten to add, no, the reality is this is possibly my first weekend under canvas DXing, if you like. I did spend a little bit of time in France the weeks previous.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Where I took the radio across, and I tell you what, that's brilliant. Having just the one radio and having just one antenna. And making the most of that rather than having, like we have at home, we throw this up,
selections,
or change the radio or whatever.
Yeah.
Just having the one radio, one antenna, and you make the most of it, don't you?
You do.
You basically throw out the length of wire, whack your radio on the end of it, and then tune around trying to find what's great for your particular setup. It's not going to be brilliant for everything. So you tend to, I suppose, focus on the bands that you can get with the kit that you've got and enjoy it, rather than go, oh, I wish I bought this, wish I bought that. No, that's not the whole point. The 3 weeks previous were brilliant in France. Brilliant.
Tom, I want to come back to you a minute and ask you about checklists and planning.
Yeah.
I'm only asking you about this because I went through a hell of a lot of, I was kind of Captain Callum for our weekend that we went away, and make sure, we even had a Zoom call between us all, make sure, and you came up with some ideas, make sure you bring a head torch, some really daft stuff. But you have to, and I'll come back, I will ask you the question, but I had to run through the whole weekend in my mind and literally imagine the desk. We're going to need a mouse. We're going to need, we're going to do what we're going to do. How did you plan your checklist?
So, for my walk?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on the back of 30 years of doing wild camping and living under a bush, partly due to my job.
Yeah.
But there are certain things so I always start with the most important thing. I've made a little blatant plug for my tiny YouTube channel. I made a video on this, but you're not going to enjoy yourself at all, because the whole point of this is to have fun, it's not a survival exercise. In fact, if it becomes a survival exercise, you're doing something really wrong. So the first thing is shelter and water and food. So get that right. So shelter is obviously is your tent or covering or whatever else you're going to do, but also the clothes you're wearing. And again, you don't have to spend a fortune, but layers and things like that to stay warm. It's remarkable how cold it gets at night, even in the height of summer in some places, especially if you're up a hill. So shelter and water and food are the first three things, because without that, you're going to have a miserable time.
Yeah.
And then after that is radio. And I do the same as you, Callum. I literally mentally envisage the top of the antenna all the way down into the radio and what's powering it, and then how am I going to talk into it. So and I make a list. You have to make a checklist, and once you've done it 3 or 4 times, the first time you go out, you'll take 20 times too much stuff. You won't use half of it. You won't use half of it, and when you get back, you say, well, I didn't need that. You don't need 4 pairs of boots. You don't need a spare battery, all that kind of stuff. You need some lighting, and you need some emergency communications if you've got a phone signal, so charge your phone up, all that kind of stuff. But lists is the answer, Callum, and as you say, visualizing it. When you get more complex, like you do with fridges and all sorts of generators and things, then you have to make a checklist. And then there are mnemonics and things, dress equipment. I mean, in the army, we call this thing called dewarmed, which is dress equipment, ammunition, weapons, radios, that kind of thing. So you remember.
We forgot the bloody ammunition.
If we forgot the ammunition because Mike was coming, But I think lists are the way forward, and try it once and then chuck out half of the stuff you took because you won't need it.
I sort of look at, you got a sleep kit and you got like an eating kit, then you got hygiene. I try and look at the kits and go, okay, they run through each kit, make sure that they're all topped up. When you go on a regular basis, then all you're doing really is topping up all the bits in your kits. And then you can just grab your bag and you just go out then.
I think lists are key. I have a HF portable list. I have a VHF contesting list, and I've literally stood on the back of the car, pointing in the boot, ticking things off the list, because there's nothing worse than being an hour away and you've forgotten something. You've forgotten the coax. You've forgotten a PL259 to unplug converter.
BNC2,
Yeah, and you think, oh my god! And
Being
so
XRF, of course, I've got a man for that.
yes, a Batman.
Got a man for that. Now, Tom and I came up with a good idea because he thought he would have, he needed about, to cover all eventualities, about 5 meters of coax. Well, you tell a story, Tom.
So I was wondering how much coax I'd need, and weight is obviously everything. That stuff Rowley's got is lovely, but I ended up taking Airborne 5, which isn't cheap, but only 5 meters. And I had it cut into 2.5 meter lengths because if I was in my tent or bivvy right next to the antenna, I wasn't too scared of the RF risk from that being that close to the antenna, so that worked well. But if I wanted to be slightly further away, then I can join it with a barrel, and I got 5 meters, and that was perfectly adequate for what I wanted.
Yeah.
And Airborne 5 is lovely, lightweight, small, good quality. So
and you just had that contingency. If one of them gave up, you still got a 2.5 meter run.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
That's quite clever.
Well, it was Tom and I, Mike. All right,
So it's almost clever.
And thanks to Gary because he made that up for me.
He did, down at Martin Lynch. Give him a little plug. Why not?
Just going back to a question, Cal, there was a question earlier on about BioNO batteries, what LifePro batteries in the UK. They are difficult to source in the UK at the moment. One place to look at is Golf Cart batteries, because they use small 12-volt LifePro batteries.
Right.
So, for instance, BioNO, who all our American friends use, they don't export to EU because of flying these batteries on aircraft. They're not allowed to. So, or there's difficult apparently. So, have a look at golf buggy batteries. They're lightweight and good source.
Well, the life for...
I was going to say, sorry, Callum. I was going to say, link back to the start of the stream when Mike was on about lead acid. You wouldn't normally go below 50% on lead acid because if you repeat that, it can damage it. But so anyone out there, if you've got 100 amp hour, really you've only got a 50 amp hour. But
indeed, you have.
If you're on SSB, you're using a lot less than what you think you might be using anyway. So it swings and roundabouts.
Yeah. So the main station had a pair of 80 amp AGM gel, sort of leisure batteries, and Tom's 2 rolls of solar was chucking. You measured it, Tom. It was about 4 amps, wasn't it?
Yeah, 4 or 5 amps at about maximum 60 watts or something, just enough to keep it ticking over.
Yeah. So when I got back, the 160 amps, my Victron measured, it only put in 19.4 amps back into the whole system to get it back up to float. So, which, and I just think, I mean, I don't know how much they were. They were over £100, but they weren't. If you look at 160, so that's, I would need sort of a 50 to 70 amp hour life fancy batteries.
LiFePro 4, yeah.
Yeah, LiFePro 4, and like a 100 amp one of those is nearly £500. So,
but unlike Rowley's 2-finger jobby, I mean, 110
you
amp
don't
hour.
get any benefit from buying a lighter big battery because you're never going to carry it up a hill anyway. So you might as well buy your lead acid.
It's what we call in the UK horses for courses.
Yeah, man weighed ton, absolute ton.
Yeah.
Well,
what are they? 110 amp hour.
Backpack, then you make the choice between the weight is important in a backpack, but not so important in the car boot.
In the car, no. Yeah, the 115, Callum. But I've got a generator as well now, so I've got the generator as mains.
I mean, I would like one of the fancy batteries, only because you can literally run it to the ground.
Yes. And it's fairly even till it drops.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, you get, 100 amp is the equivalent of probably 250, 300 amp. You can draw a hell of a lot if you need it, like my 12-volt linear, which doesn't work at the moment. But that needs up to 70 amps peak, you see. So I was looking at a 200 amp hour battery, but it weighs, the fancy batteries, like, what do I say? What is it called, Ian? A life...
You got me here today.
PO4.
PO4, yeah.
200 amp version of that weighs 28 kilos, and is nearly £1,000. So that's about $1,250 in the US.
And it's worth checking kit beforehand, because some items of kit I've had don't like going too far below 13.8, despite what they say in the instructions. So when you're down to, like, a lead acid would sit at 12.6 normally.
Right.
And sometimes if you're pulling a lot of amps, it can dip.
Yeah, indeed.
Down to the high 11s as you I don't know, if an amplifier or whatever. So you just need to be careful, because sometimes on one occasion I wasn't putting out the power I thought I was, and I couldn't understand why, and I realized it was a combination of surge plus power drop, and it didn't like
The
it.
battery, sometimes your radio can switch off and back on again. It flat. Some of the older radios like drop and come back on to get the sort of
I checked the spec. Kenwood said the 590 will cut out at 11 volts, for instance.
Yeah.
And I think if the battery, if it started cutting out, I think I've probably drained the blooming battery anyway. I'm just looking at David's. I think it's David. I can't remember. He's got a 40 amp hour Bueno here in Echo Alpha Land. All right.
Wow. Oh, well, there you go.
I did speak to Tony at Martin Lynch about this, and we've got real problems shipping batteries. So, Philippe wants to know, will the live stream stay? Yes, it will stay listed. I might give it a new thumbnail and a title, but it will stay listed, yeah. It's David, yeah, okay, fine. All right, so we've covered the antenna, the coax, the radio. Now, I've got an opinion about a radio. If you're out and you're not in the middle of a contest, then any blooming radio will do the job. So if you've got a second HF set that is a bit battered up, use that one. You don't have to take like a 590 or a TS2000 or whatever else. And noise levels, though, most radios in the last 30 years are better than any noise floor out in the middle of nowhere anyway. What do you say, Rowley?
Yeah, well, I have two options. I have the Elecraft KX3 if I'm going to be walking a fair way, because it's light and it's simple and it gives me 10 watts and I'm away. If I can find a park bench close by and it's only a couple of 100 meters or something like that, then the ICOM 7300 is absolutely ideal. It's cracking a radio, and just sit down on the park bench and away you go. It's a very good talking point. A lot of people stop and ask you what you're doing and so on like that. And that's good public relations anyway. But those are my two choices for two different reasons, really.
But Tom, and what you did, other than the weight, a 706 would have done that, wouldn't it? Surely?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I was thinking exactly that. For me, I took the 705 just because I wanted to play with 10 watts. But for me, a 706 Mark II-G or whatever is a perfect radio.
Yeah, brilliant radio.
Is that got 2 on it as well, Tom?
And 70, yeah.
2 and 70, yeah.
Lovely.
And the front pops off if you want to put it mobile. But no one makes a radio like that anymore, sadly. Or the IC 7000's another one, similar story.
857 from Yaesu.
Yeah, they're brilliant radios. And on the second-hand market, if you were going to get really into this, they're not too bad. They still go for about, in the UK, about 600-700 quid, something like that. So,
okay.
Little shack in the box is what we're saying, really. Particularly gives you the option, if it's no good on HF that day, then you can have some fun on 2,
Yep.
Yeah,
I've had so much fun with an old ICOM 706 Mark I, and I've had so much fun. I saw my first one, and then this year I bought another 706 Mark I because I just love it. It just reminds me of all the very early days.
That doesn't have 70, does it? No 70 centimeters.
No 70, no. And no real
on the Mark
digital, no DSP on it either, really. So it is very basic, but so much fun climbing up hills with it and making contacts and doing 2 meters SSB on it and all sorts.
My comments were tempered on what I've got. So,
well, indeed.
That's it. I mean, that's a good rule of thumb. What have you got? Take what you got.
Absolutely.
If it's practice, of course.
And most, as you said, Callum, most rigs in living memory will excel in a quiet, remote location. You're not, unless you're in a massive worldwide contest weekend, but generally the receive will be far in excess of what you experience at home.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Most
that's the
radios
whole-
noise
that's
floors
the whole
are
beauty
much
of it, isn't it?
When you-
better than you will ever need.
When you go out and you're putting the preamps on, wondering where the noise floor is, and you realise it's so low, it doesn't really matter.
I know. Oh, there you go. Exactly right.
Yeah,
On a
I've had a
serious
couple-
note,
That was
somebody
the biggest
wanted to know.
motivation for me to go portable. To be honest, was the noise. The noise here at home is just horrendous, and many a time, Ian, I have gone out to a park and gone, oh sod it, if I what have I
Something's not
done?
working.
And you check everything out and you go, oh no, it's just that it's dead quiet, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I can't. I flashed the message up, but it's gone. Oh, here we are.
Two
It's
sugars,
Brett,
please.
Actually,
No, not good for you.
Hi, Gail.
Sorry, one.
Tell her she's live, Rolly.
Yeah,
She's got 185 admirers.
Yeah.
So, Brett, I'm not quite sure if it's a tongue-in-cheek question. It covered off the whole topic of Portaloos and so on. The bottom line is that there's two different types of toileting for a human. The first one is pretty easy; it's behind a car door, and the second one is more complicated. And you just have to be creative in that regard. Ideally, after dark, when Mike isn't flying his drone over the top of you. And if you're in the middle of nowhere, as somebody says, a spade and a long walk normally works quite well.
Very nice.
Yes.
Now, the other thing is logging, right? Now, we
Yes.
had...
No pun intended. No.
and how are you going to deliver your log? And how you're going to show your log to people? Right?
What you don't want to do is
Are you going
don't
to send
upload
your
your
log anywhere?
I find the cool box is probably the best way to deliver your log.
Oh no.
Right, logging. So, Rolly, when you go out and about, do you log on a phone or an iPad or something, or what do you? I'm just going to the fridge. You talk. I'm just here.
Here it is. I use that little program called Hammers, HAMRS.
Oh,
And,
that's the POTA thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's all pre-formatted for POTA, SOTA,
Yeah.
and there's also a generic option as well. If you don't want to go to those formats, you just select generic in the drop-down menu, and away you go. That
Okay.
works extremely well for me. Although you got to have little fingers to be able to do it, I guess, in some ways. But no, it works fine. I've all but given up on pencil and paper now because the last one, as I was getting into my car, packing everything up is starting to hose down with rain, and as I'm packing up, my notebook and everything just dropped into a puddle, and when I got home, I had a blurred mess, So, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I use. It works very, very well, and there's a number of those sorts of things on that are available nowadays.
Okay. Well, I mean, we used, only because I know it very well. Actually, Tom and I were chatting on the phone this morning. He doesn't know it so well, and so maybe there's a video in it for me. We use N1MM, which is a bit of an overkill, but I just select a contest called DX, which gives me the 4 fields or 5 fields.
Yeah.
The call sign, send, receive, and I get 2 fields for notes. I normally put the name in one and baloney in the other, And we had the 2 laptops running, one on 2 or 70 or 80, and then mine. They were networked together with my phone, and I could see what frequency Jonathan was on, or he could see. And it was just not in a multi-2 type environment. It's nice to be able to see what the other guy is doing.
If I'm out on a de-expedition, Cal, I will use N1MM, and I set it up for that particular de-expedition. the main reason why I use that is because I can have a keyboard just sit there. Using a keyboard when you're on a de-expedition and the calls are coming in flat out, a keyboard is essential rather than trying to poke your way around on a phone.
Just out of curiosity, does anyone actually still use paper logs?
I take one as a backup in case it all goes horribly wrong.
Funnily enough, we had a backup, but we never needed it, so I didn't put it out the Tesco box.
I did when I walked. I used a paper log and then uploaded it.
Okay.
Which takes ages.
Yeah, it does it.
That was just because I didn't want to use my phone to log because I needed it in case I broke my ankle or something. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Good point.
I guess I gave up paper logs, Mike, when I decided that I'd take my ZL9 BQD log and enter 44,000 QSOs into LOTW.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the paper log because if you're going to go out and about, it's a computer you got to take with you or your phone you got to take with you, and if you're doing this as a weekend jolly with your LiPo battery or whatever it is, the minimum amount of electrical kit possible, I would have thought.
Good point.
Just an observation.
And if you can't find a dock leaf, use your paper log.
Well,
that's absolutely. In fact, you can take it. It's just never mind.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I think we have basically. I mean, I wanted to make sure that I had a bit of common sense about what I was doing as well, which is one of the reasons for this stream and getting you, because all you guys independently are experiencing this in this part of the hobby. I must say, though, that getting out and about, even if it's solo, like Carl does quite often, and Tim, who's on the stream as well, Ian, with your little activity nights, you're often solo. I have considered a solo thing. That'd be quite. You just got to get your mind around the fact that you're on your own, and you've got to just get on with it. But of course, you've got a bit of RF going on, haven't you? So, as Wendy said to me, she said, "Oh, wouldn't you find it a bit lonely?" Well, I said, "No, because as soon as you key the microphone, you start talking to someone, you feel connected again, don't you?"
Well, exactly. You're not really on your own, are you?
No. Which is where the checklist comes in, because you get there and only all of a sudden you discover that the PL259 doesn't fit into the BNC connector. Okay.
Cal, if you go back to antennas just briefly, I do have one piece of kit which I found extremely helpful, and that's just a humble piece of pipe like this, 50mm pipe. Tape it at one end, hole at the other end, so you can shove a screwdriver through that and use it as a drill into the ground, and then your DX commander sits on top of that, just slots down on top of that.
Okay.
And away you go.
You screw the bait, you screw the cap off, and then slit it over the top.
Then I have an addition to that, which I've just recently used. Get an adapter, a screw adapter like that. That goes on that end. And then get yourself a lump of wood with the opposite end of that.
Oh my goodness!
On that.
Oh, drive on, brilliant.
And so your DX commander sits on here again, and the front wheel of your car sits on there.
Yeah.
How simple.
Right? So now you've got your front wheel of your car or your rear wheel of your car supporting the DX commander on this thing here.
That's a blooming good idea, Rowley.
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
And that's sure. If you got your car with you, that's the extra bit of kit to take with you. That can be a bit of that's extra weight if you're going to go walking. I agree, but if you got a car with you,
I'm definitely a transportable type of guy. I think rather than a tom type.
Hiking. Yeah.
I'm not
that would be a bit. If you're hiking, that's all you got to do is just take a lump of pipe like this. But the terrain that Tom was tramping around in with all your rocks and so on, probably not.
Of course, it's blowing a gale.
pack, it works really well.
Yeah, if it's blowing a gale, it's different. But as Tom and I discovered, when we originally built his DX Commander, we just laid it up against a tree. Now, if the wind's blowing the wrong way, it'd fall over. Of course, it would.
Yeah.
Put it around the other side of the tree.
Yes.
Unless it's blustery and wind changing. That's right.
Tie it to the tree.
Just
Oh,
shift
but
it
I
back.
do want a question for Tom, right? Because I wanted to know how, because I looked at some of his pictures and some of his video, and he's got his DX Commander perfectly guide in his 12 minutes, whatever he did. And I said, how did you guy it with all those rocks and boulders and everything? So I've even forgotten, Tom. You did something with boulders. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, even standing up a 10-meter pole on your own, there is a trick to it, isn't there? And you've shown it on your video a couple of times. But if you imagine the guys are out at 120 degrees because of the three of them. So what you do is you work out which way the wind's blowing, and you want the two of the guys facing the wind, if that makes sense. So that's the first thing. So you don't rely you're not relying on one guy just taking the crumbs of the wind.
Yeah. So when it's up, the wind is going to hold it up effectively.
Yeah. And then the next thing you do is pin down two of the guys, and then put a rock or possibly even your foot or your bag or your rucksack or something against the base of the pole, and then walk the pole up. Because otherwise, what happens is the base of the pole keeps slipping away from you as you're trying to lift the pole up. And then what you're getting at, Cal, is that I've got quite nice guy stakes, but in heavy winds, what I then do is I put a rock on the top of the guy line, just towards the pole from the guy peg.
Inside the guy stake. Yeah.
Inside the guy stake, yeah. And that worked quite nicely to get a little bit more tension on the guys and stop them pulling out directly. Because in heavy winds, that does help. So that's all it was, really. But after a bit of practice, you can do it. The other thing to be aware of is on the DX Commander, just occasionally be aware that the plates can sometimes rotate and touch each other, just if it's being battered by the gales. And you'll notice instantly because your SWR goes off the chart. Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's
And because of your comment, Tom, we're bending the tab at a different place now. That can't happen.
Good.
Nice.
Okay. That's feedback.
Yeah. Real world feedback. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was it. And I've always been amazed by the fact you guide it at the bottom and it just seems to stand there.
Yeah.
And me, to be honest.
One expedition I had it all on one side. It was about 40 mile an hour and nearly horizontal, and all three guys on one side, Tom. So it was definitely not. It wasn't going to flop the other way by certain.
Okay.
Yeah, I've actually transmitted on mine when it was still laying down, and it worked really well.
I've done that as well as a test on 80.
I did mine not connected, and it worked.
Yeah.
We've all done that.
Yeah, extra guys.
That RG58. Bloody good stuff.
That's a good point that this person's just made. So that's where I put my hose clamps. Below the guying point is where the downward tension is maximum. So that's, if you're going to use your hose clamps, that's where you put them.
Yeah.
And that was fine. Yeah.
Well, tremendous. If there's no more questions, we will start to bail out. But I was kind of wrapping up to say I can't wait to do the next one. Wendy and I are away in 2 weeks, and there's no garden in Bude where we're going this time, so I'm going to go portable out on the cliff top. That should be quite fun. So this is very pertinent to me. All right. Incidentally, Ian, I've got a 13-pin caravan connector on the back of my car now.
Euro one, they're the standard now.
Yeah, but I'm going to have to trick the electronics by putting a light bulb in line with a couple of so that the Mercedes knows to open it all up. Because what I was going to do is, when the car was running, is charge the leisure battery off the Mercedes electronics. Yeah,
that sounds the plan. Because it does, when you connect to the caravan, it does charge the battery and runs the fridge as well. So you can put a bit of power through those.
I don't know what happens. Has it got automatic trip out or something? Has it got a regulator inbuilt? I don't know what these new cars.
Don't know off the top of my head, Callum. Best to double check.
Okay. Ray wants to know how long away. Just a week, Ray. Good. Anything else, boys, you think add value to here before we hit the end button?
Get out and do it. It's great fun.
Yeah.
I'd
It's
agree.
amazing.
Yeah.
Took the words out of my mouth.
I wonder if there's anybody on the stream that has never gone portable. If you've got a 12-volt radio and an old car battery and a bit of wire, try it, because it's there's nothing like it. Okay, so from me here and all the chaps around the world, all the way from... I just thought, Rowley, we don't say... For New Zealand, we don't say down under, do we? Wonder what the expression is for the...
You can if you like.
Down under.
Which means I'd be like that. Though.
That's right.
Oh, mate, that's what you should have done all the way
StreamYard
through.
logo has blown
was
you away,
brilliant.
actually. Yeah. Very good.
You should have had the camera that way up all the time. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
I did that once on a Zoom call up to the States, and I said, "Oh, sorry, guys."
All right, well, if you guys want to stay on the stream for a minute, I'll say cheerio to these guys. To the participants would just like to hold on. I'll say cheerio to the joiners and the people back home. So a very good day from me, Callum, at DX Commander, all the boys, I'm sure, Mike, Ian, Tom, Carl, and Rowley. Thank you very much for coming on here and giving our time up for no reason other than the fun of the hobby. All right. All the best now. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Right.
Oh, white spot.